welcome back everybody. Hope you're doing well wherever you are in the world. And welcome back to the channel in Python, learning the Python language. In today's lesson, we are going to learn about variables. And variables are used in all languages. Either you're using C++ or Java, you're always going to have variables. And variables are very important because they store information that can be used in our programs where we can hold either user inputs or values. It's just variables store information in our computer. So now let's have more of a quick look into this. And as always, go ahead and get on replay so you can follow me on the coding so that way you can learn the little bit practices, because today's lesson, the previous lesson, I've just been teaching you the terms, the definitions, but today is going to be a bit of a longer video where I will be teaching you as well the definition and the variables names, the rules and stuff. And I'm going to also be doing 3 programs with you that are using these examples that we learned. So aside from just learning what you can do with them, you also get to play around a little bit with a short program and you get to see how cool and fast Python is. So let's go ahead and get started. Click Python for me. As always, dark mode. Alright, so in variables, I'm going to use for this example, let's say we are taking a quiz and to test our IQ, and we got a test score of 200. So yay us, we got a test score of 200. So I would create in order to store that score in my computer, I will have to create a variable, and I can name it anything I want. I can name it either IQ, and then you have to say equals that score, which is 200, or I can name it IQ score. Well, let's not get too far ahead. Let's just go ahead with just IQ 200, and then I will teach you the rules of variables, because you can write anything you want as a variable, but one of the rules that Python has is you can in order to write, like, let's say if I wanted to write IQ score, I can just write an underscore. You put an underscore and then you write, okay, this is going to be my IQ score, instead of having it together piled up like this. So that is one of the advantages that you can have. Also, it doesn't have to be just a short variable. It can either be, if you want to write other stuff, make your variable score test, you can keep doing that. Just keep adding the underscore. But again, as a programmer, you want to make sure that you make sense of your variables. You never want to make them too long, and you just want to make sure they're readable to any other programmer that is reviewing your code. So in here, we're just going to name it IQ 200. And right now it's not going to do anything because I'm not asking the computer to do anything. I'm just creating simply a variable which is going to hold 200. And when you use variables, you can later use them in your program. You can call for them. So in this case, I'm going to call again that variable that I used. So now I'm going to print it out to the computer. So print IQ, and it's going to print that value. So again, this is just like a little bit of a preview of what you can do with variables in programming. You're gonna use them to maybe to hold your data. Maybe let's say if you're working for a company like Facebook, people upload their profile picture, so that information is going to be stored in a variable in the programming side. So let's say also you're going to create like a game and you want to store like different positions of the game, like either moving or place. That's going to hold a variable like in the program. So variables are very important because we could later use them in a program that hold that value that we been using repeatedly. So for example, now we're going to talk about the rules and how you can write what's illegal and legal when writing variables. So one ways that you saw was, writing with underscore. And for this example, we're going to keep using the IQ example. So this, and remember hashing, the hash number means that we're writing comments. So in this, you want to make sure you write comments so you can remember and go back. Oh, what did I learn here? So we're going to write a comment. This is a legal way to write variables. Let's just put legal. What you should not do when writing variables is you cannot put numbers in front. So let's say we were to write first score. This would not be acceptable in Python because it cannot begin with a digit. So see how I'm getting little errors right here? It won't tell you right away, but just know that you can never put a number in front of a variable letter. You can put capitalize a letter, you could put, a lowercase letter, and it will work. And to add more letters, to more words, like instead of just compacting them all together, you can also add an underscore. So that's a legal way, but definitely do not put a number in front of your variable. Another way you can mess up too that is illegal. So let's just show you the ones that you don't want to, mess up in your program. Oh, and again, you can also have it close together as well, the variables, but as a clean programmer when writing code, you want to make sure you write like a good structure of like cleanliness code. So let's just say mix score, and this is the error you do not want to do. You don't want to add another number. I cannot add that. Or let's say if you wanted to just add 3, you can add the 3. It would work less as that, but you cannot add any comments, or you can add any symbols. It always has to use letters, digits, or underscores. But if you use digits, it has to be at the end or in between. So let's say aside from my Q example, you can also write, let's say you're writing a birthday variable, June 1997. This is a legal way to write a variable. And this could be, equals, your birthday month. So those are some ways where you don't want to mess up. Alright guys, so remember that programs are simply data that is being stored and being changed, removed, and variables is a very important concept when you're learning any programming language. So let's go ahead and get started now with actually learning what we can do with these variables in a program. So in this program, this is going to be a short one. I'm just going to show you what you can do, what we learned in the previous minutes ago, just creating variables, but now we get to use them again. So like as always, putting comments. Sometimes it's good to be logged in so you can save these programs and later just review them, and you are learning the Python language. Now we are printing. So printing is just when you write statements out to the computer. In Python, it could be double quotes or single quotes. And when you're using your variables, you want to make sure you put it outside your quotes, because you're not printing out a statement. You're going to use a variable which holds the value, which is 503 in this case. So we're going to just call it what we named it, room, without quotes. And then we're going to run it. And then now it says, hey, I'm staying in room number 503. And it's not going to say, oh, I'm staying in room. You may think, oh, but it may say room. No. What it's going to print out is I am staying in this room, and then it's going to print out what's storing in that variable, and it's storing 503. So another example is that we can also rearrange values in our variables. So I'm going to give you another example. And this is what I like about Python, because I know when learning C++, it was a bit hard for me to learn how to change a bit of the variables. It's just, I mean, it's not that hard. It's just like a longer process, because you have to import the libraries and stuff like that. And we're simply assigning a value to, we're going to do an example of dollars. So we're going to say assigning a value of dollar to the dollar variable. So we're going to start with writing our variable, which is dollars. And you can name it anything you want, remember? But we're going to name it dollars in this case. So it's dollars equals 2.75. And then we're also going to write the printing statement on there. I have, and then you want to say the variable which is going to hold. I want to say I have 2.75, right? But I'm not going to say 2.75, because that's going to give me an error, because there's nothing in 2.75 that I created that holds that. What holds that value is dollars. So I just put my variable name, which is dollars, and it calls it right away in your IDE. So you put I have dollars, comma, in, and now you're printing again another statement in my account. Dot. And then we're going to continue the program. We're not going to end it yet, because we're going to reassign now. So now we want to say, hey, for this variable, always make sure with Python you are good with your indents, because see, I was already writing over here, and it's giving me a line telling me, hey, that's the only thing that's strict about Python, the indents. So make sure you're in the beginning. So now I'm gonna write dollars equals, change this value from 99.95. So now dollars is going to have two different values on it, 2.75 and 99.95, because I'm reassigning it to a different value. But we'll see right now what the output will be. But right now we're going to print now this new value. And now let's see what we did. So I'm saying, aside from this, aside from that, don't take account on this. This is what we may print the computer printout. I have 2.75 in my account. So I have, it's in quotes, because that's what we're printing to the computer. And then we have dollars without quotes, because I'm now using that variable again in my program, and I stored the value 275. So it's going to automatically in the computer say, hey, I have 275 in my account. But in the backside of it, it's stored in a variable. So I hope you're seeing now the benefits of using variables in a programming language. And now I changed that I'm still using that variable, but now I changed it into a different value because I want to show you that you can rearrange them through using the same value. So now we called it, and you see it's not calling again the dollars right away. In a code, you're seeing dollars. You would think, hey, it's gonna print that out. No, it's gonna listen to our command. So what's next to print out is, but now I have 99.95 in my account, which holds that value of dollars. But in this difference is I didn't put dollars in my variable. I just automatically put 99.95 in my account. Oh, my bad. Actually, see, that's one thing I like about programming. Even you're never perfect. I even made a mistake. So I'm not supposed to actually put 99.95 in Python. It didn't make no errors, but in other programming languages, it probably would have gave me an error because I'm not using any variable. I'm just printing out. Probably like you wouldn't know, but you just have to put again dollars. But now I have, and then you put comma, comma again, some quotes. Something going on in here, error. But now I have, oh, I didn't put a comma on there. You gotta make sure that you put commas when you're putting your variables beginning and end. So now it's reading 99.95 using my variable. So it's still ran, but knowing you as a programmer, you gotta make sure you're using your variables. With Python, it's kind of easy to make a little bit errors when beginning because it's so easy to print out stuff on it. Alright guys, another example I'm going to be teaching you is also how to create variables that reference two strings. And we're also going to be using the variables that use the underscore, so that way you can be able to see how you can actually use that in action. So you have to create a variable to reference two strings. And we're gonna, for this example, I want to say a full name of somebody, but I'm gonna hold it in two variables. So I'm gonna name it my variable first name underscore equals, let's say Catherine, and then for her last name and so now we are going to display it referenced by those two variables. First name and then comma last name. So we printed out Katie Marino with using those two variables. So keep in mind that you can do many things with variables. That's why it's a very important topic for you to learn when you're getting into programming, how you're using your variables and how you're creating them, so that way you can later use them in your program. So this concludes today's lecture. It was just simply teaching you the rules, how to create a variable, and how you can play around with them with this short, simple programs. In the following lecture, I'll be teaching a much more complex program, not complex, but more bigger of what we've been learning, which will include data types, if and while loops. So it's something that maybe I don't know, but it's how a program keeps running through without having to end here. You see how it ends here? So it's waiting for me now to create something else. So if and while loops is what makes a program, like, run again based on its conditions. But again, you will learn that in the next lecture.